So welcome. I'm Livia Labate, and I'm one of the organizers of the Enlister Research Summit. And like I said, if you're looking to get to know Zoom, you're in the right session. Not only that, but you have already mastered two of the hardest parts of this, which is setting up an account and installing Zoom. So congratulations, you're already winning here.
We won.
So for our session here, one second, just checking, making sure my computer is doing what I want. All right, so for our session here today, I'm not gonna make any assumptions about what you know or don't know. My goal is to demonstrate what you can do with Zoom and give you a chance to try for yourself. And then if you have any questions, we can try and answer them together. We're going to cover how Zoom works, where are all the controls, what they do, the differences between meetings and webinars, because those are two different modes that you can use Zoom in, and we're going to be using both during the summit. And we're going to talk about some common AV issues that you may experience and a few advanced topics as well. And then at the end, we have some final tips for a really great experience throughout. So I will stop after each section and to see if there are any questions. So you have the opportunity to just like in the moment really deal with whatever issue you're encountering. So let's jump in. So to get us started on the right track, so this is what you should have been seeing so far in the previous slide. You should have been seeing a screen with some controls at the bottom, and in the middle you should have been seeing some slides, and at the very top there are probably some squares with people's faces. So in case it didn't look that way, notice that there is something called View Options at the top of the screen. So if you click on that, it will reveal this panel that allows you to regulate what is visible on your Zoom screen. So depending on how you're sitting on your computer and how your screen is set up, you may want the screen to be smaller or bigger. So if you always have that setting set to fit to window, it will ensure that whatever is being presented and shown is always visible to you. This way you never have to like reset or rejigger. So that's a good tip just to get you started. So in case you weren't seeing everything, select fit to window and you'll see everything going forward. And you can always use this control if you want, you know, if maybe someone is presenting something that's like a lot of detail and it's a little too small, you can always zoom in and take a look at that. So it's just like a nice convenient thing to have access to. In addition to that, you have an option very close to that called View on the top right. And this allows you to toggle between different modes of seeing all the people who are participating. So why don't you just click on that and see what the options are. So gallery view is probably what we'll be using most of the time, but there are other options so you can emphasize like the person speaking becomes more present on the screen than the people who are only participating. So it really is up to you what feels more comfortable. During a session, the session host may start the session in one mode or another because they think that might be the best setting for the session, but it's really up to you. Whatever feels more comfortable for you, you can always go hit view and change that. It's not gonna affect anything for anyone else. It's just your experience of how you're seeing the Zoom screen. So you can toggle those and see what feels good for you. So what else? So I think this kind of gives you a sense of like where we need to be right now. So let's look at those in meeting controls. So for the in meeting controls, I'm just moving my screen here. One moment, my slides are not moving with me, which is fine. All right, so at the bottom of your screen, you see this dark horizontal bar with icons and labels. And those are the actions you can take during a Zoom meeting. So the audio control says mute. And after you click it, it has a red bar across. That means nobody can hear you. If you click again, you'll be unmuted. So it's a toggle. It's either muted or unmuted, and then everyone will be able to hear. So let's try. Let's see. I'm going to pick someone, and I would love to know where you're based. Susan Pietrowski.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, it works. Brilliant.
Where are you hailing from?
From Duisburg in Germany.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us today. So
Yeah.
there we go. This is it. So you can mute yourself back now.
Yeah.
And in general, when you're in a larger session, when like someone is like doing a show and tell or something, you probably want to stay muted because your background noise sometimes can interfere with how the person is talking. So in general, it's best to just stay muted. And then when you're prompted, you can unmute and talk. But that's it. Similarly, with the video control, after you click, there will be a red bar across it saying this means nobody can see you. Even if your camera is like open, standing right at you, no one will be able to see you. And if you click on it again, then you'll be live, and there will be live video streaming, and everyone will be able to see you. So let's see, who else might want to try their camera that's not already on camera? Trish, Rafa, might you be interested in joining us? And it's okay if you don't. And if you just want to stay quiet, that's fine. Let's see, I'm gonna pick another person. Kristen Adesi, would you like to turn on your camera? To give it a go?
Yes, I'm turning it on.
Fantastic. Look at that. How are you doing?
I'm just multitasking right now. I'm doing well.
Cool. Where are you hailing from?
Staten Island, New York.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you for joining us. There we go.
Thank you for this session.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so that's video for you. So you can toggle your audio and video at any time during a session. If you're being prompted to participate, it's always best to participate fully with audio and video if you can. And so beyond that, I think I'm gonna pause here and see if there's any immediate questions about this. Everyone feeling good? Okay, so I pause and I look because I'm scrolling through all your faces to make sure that I am catching whatever things you need. All right, so let's move on. So after we cover the core things, we're gonna see that in that bar of options, we have participants. So if you click on participants, they will reveal a panel showing a list of the names, and these are all the people who are in your Zoom meeting. So I want you to click on that, but also I want you to click on the next one, which is chat. So click on both of them, and they both should each reveal a panel. So now you should be looking at something a little bit like this. Of course, this is just a screenshot from a different session, but you should be able to see participants and chat. Does that seem right? Okay. And if you're not seeing that.
Livia, this is Jane.
Yeah.
If I click on those, they open a window right in the middle of my screen.
Does it look like this?
It's white.
Okay.
The chat, yeah, they're both white, but
okay.
They open up one on top of the other and they block whatever you have on the screen.
Okay, well, I am glad that we have this perfect example. So the color is probably just a matter of like the setting on your computer. I'm using the dark mode for these examples, but it may be the light mode, depending on your setting. But if your screen shows up like this and just floating around and getting in the way, there is a little button at the bottom that says Merge to Meeting Window. And that's present on the participant window as well as on the chat window. So if the chat just comes up like this, you actually have to click these little 3 dots here on the bottom right, and the same option will become available to you that says Merge the Meeting Window. So if you have the situation, just click Merge the Meeting Window, and it will take you back to this like simplified mode where everything is together.
Actually not working for me. If I click the 3 dots on chat, it is Save Chat.
Interesting. Okay.
I have the same issue, Livia.
Yeah, same.
Okay. I'm going to hold on to that because that should be working that way. And I will make a note to see if there is an alternate way to do that. But for the participant screens, you're able to merge into the chat, into the window?
No. The
No.
options I have there are raise hand, mute me, and invite.
Okay. And you don't have a little more button on the bottom right?
I do not.
No.
Huh, Zoom, why are you doing this to us? Okay, we will come back to this issue. There should be a method for you to put these screens in a way that's more organized. And so what I would suggest for right now is the side of the screen that has the presentation and the faces and the controls at the bottom. Keep that on your screen, like you can move it around, and just position the participant screens by holding the top of the screen and drag it to the side, just so they're side by side and not interrupting your view. Does that sound okay for right now?
Yes, thanks.
Works, yeah.
Okay, so we'll figure out a way to do that more easily in the future. But if you're in the situation, there's no other way, you can still keep them organized that way. All right, making a note for troubleshooting that Zoom issue. So that's another important thing to know, is that Zoom is always iterating on their software. So every day there's like a new feature that you don't expect, or they tweak the controls a little bit. So things like that happen all the time, and it's okay. Every problem is recoverable. All right, so moving on. Beyond those two panels, we have also, let's see what's next here. Oh, I was going to actually talk about those screens. So after resolving the issue of like where they actually exist, so why do we have these screens, right? So you can use the participant panel just to see who's in the session and who's the host and so on. You probably won't need it most of the time, so you can close it and not open, but it's just interesting. If a session might need like one of those options, like raise hand or answer yes or no, the facilitator will prompt you and walk you through like how to do that. But in general, it's just to give you a sense of who's in. The chat I recommend leaving open during the summit. It allows you to interact with other participants and is like a parallel conversation to what's happening in audio and video. You can use it to ask questions, answer questions, make comments, etc. So give it a go. Like, why does everybody would like for you to click on where it says type message here and just add something so we can see what it looks like to use chat. What's fascinating is that I don't have that screen because I am looking. There we go. Look at that. Everybody's on chat. So as you can see, if everyone's typing like in succession, it can go pretty quickly. So you can always scroll up that window to see if you missed something that you just want to go back to and take a look. So the chat is there for you to be able to not just have the general conversation with the rest of the room, but also if you're like trying to message someone, you could, from the little drop down where it says to everyone, you could pick a person that maybe you've been trying to reach or someone you want to collaborate with or something like that, and send them a private message. The one thing I want to point out for that is no one is required to respond to private messages. So just keep that in mind in terms of etiquette. It's always okay to reach out. We're all here to work together. But if someone doesn't respond, they probably are just not interested in engaging, and that's okay too. So let's see, I talk about scrolling back if you missed something. Oh, one important thing about chat is you cannot delete a message. Once you put the message there, it stays there for the duration of the meeting. So let's all be in absolutely our best behavior throughout because we can really undo it. That's really the major tip about using chat during a session. Any immediate questions about chat? All good? I'm seeing some thumbs up, so I will keep going. Okay. All right, last but not least, here's your leave option at the end of the bar. So don't click it, you will actually leave if you do that. In case you do hit it by accident, it asks you again, just in case, so that if, you know, for whatever reason you're accidentally hit it, you're not accidentally gonna be booted out of the meeting. But if you do, you can always return to the meeting by going to the event page and clicking on that Start Zoom link again. So that's always going to be present. So for as long as the session is going and for as long as the meeting is active, you can always come and go. It is not an issue at all. We have the waiting room like you saw in the beginning, and then someone lets you in. So if you left and came back, someone will let you in again. So that process is no different during a meeting. If the meeting ends and you try to get back in, it will just simply tell you that the meeting is over and you can't join again. So you'll know the difference. Does that sound good? Okay. Why is this turning? Okay. Oh, right. This is the page on the meeting. So before the meeting, you see like this, but during the meeting, it says join meeting. So we'll always be active. But you already saw the screen, so I didn't need to have a screenshot of that. Okay, so let's talk about meetings versus webinars. And I'm going to do a live edit of this because this is not what I wanted to show you right away. Okay, so what is the difference between meetings and webinars? Very little. So everything we described so far is what a meeting looks like. On a webinar, you basically have the same thing. You have the main screen with a presentation if someone is sharing their screen, and you have all the boxes with all the video being shown. But in the webinar context, there are some additional items available. There's something called a Q&A panel, and there's a specific raise and lower hand option, which is usually used for Q&A purposes. And during webinar, the video option becomes not available. So we can still do audio conversation, but in the webinar setting, only the hosts and presenters have their video enabled. So just to show you, so in your bar of options at the bottom of the screen, after chat, you would see a raise or lower hand option and Q&A in addition to that. Other than that, everything is very much the same. So if you were to click that Q&A option, oops, hold on. Here we go. You would see a screen that looks just like this, which is very similar to chat, but the way it works is slightly different. So you see the bottom here, it says type your question here. So in this setting, it would be more like if you're in we're participating in a panel or someone was doing a show and tell and they were like saving questions for the end, for example, you could type in your question here and it would be sent in to the facilitator. And when it came to time for questions, the facilitator would accept the question, and then the question will appear for everyone else. So you just type in here. It works very much like chat. After you type, it shows the question at the top in sequence. Any questions about that? Looking good? Okay. Then I will move on from this one. This one is a little more advanced feature, but since everyone is doing so great here, I'm just going to keep going and tell you all about the good stuff that you can do with Zoom. So for the summit, you'll probably experience this more as an audience member because there will be a lot of people sharing things with you, but I think you'll help to know like how this works so you know what to expect. So if you have something you need to show during a meeting, you'll use this feature called share screen. So after you click share screen, you are going to be given a few options. So this may seem like a lot at first, but I will walk through everything. And in terms of etiquette as well, we never just start sharing in a meeting without announcing, because that is very disruptive for everyone's experience because it changes everyone's screen as you'll experience. So one of the things that we do is always either volunteer or say something before you share your screen, like, oh, I'm about to share my screen to show you XYZ, just to give people a little context. Unfortunately, this is called share, but really what you're trying to do is show. You're not sending anyone anything. They're not receiving your file. It's just a window into whatever you have on your computer. So the choices you're going to get to make from the next screen are about what things you want to show from your computer. So you will see when you click share screen, a panel that looks like this. So the first, the first option, so these are options, like what do you want to show from your computer? The first option is going to be your whole desktop. So if you just share that, so if you just click share at the bottom there, everyone will be able to see your entire desktop and any windows that are open with any software that you have running. So this is like the nuclear option. Like if you just want to show everything, just go for that. If you want to be a little more discerning, you're trying to share a specific thing like an image or a file, or you want to show someone a website as you click through it, then this screen is smart enough to just give you the options for the things that you have open. So in the case here, I'm just looking at the bottom here. I have an image of N-Lister by Ms. Turner that I have open on an application, and I have my browser looking at some of the archive records here. So for example, if I wanted to share that image, I would select that by clicking on it, and you can see the color change to indicate that I selected that. And then when I click share, only that image is being shared with the rest of the group. And so this is what it looks like to me, the screenshot. So you can see my controls here at the bottom are slightly different. I can annotate and do some other things. Really, this is really only relevant if you're presenting and you might want to do something a little more esoteric, but for the viewer, they're just really just going to see the image itself. If you are presenting, if you're trying to share your screen, you always have the option to pause the share. And what that means is like, just hold up. Maybe you want to go look at something on a different screen and you don't want everyone to be seeing what you're doing. So you can just pause the share, and all it will do for you as the presenter is it will highlight it in orange around it so you know you're on pause. And then you can always click resume to continue sharing. So I'm gonna just go back because this one is always a little more involved. So you click share screen, gives you a panel of options of what to share. If you don't have what you wanted to share ready, you can just like go back and like open that browser window or software, whatever it is that you want to share, and then it will appear here, and then you can share again. Or you can always, just click share your desktop and then go find whatever you need to share. So after you click share on the item you want, it will be shown to everyone. Does this make sense? Any questions about sharing so far? I'm seeing some thumbs up.
Yes, please.
Yes?
I'm Lynn from England.
Hello.
Thank you for hosting this. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Just for presenting how I see it, a deck of slides.
Mm-hmm.
Would I just have those on the screen ready, and then that would come up under preview and click on there?
Yeah, so what I would say, are you using Google Slides or PowerPoint?
So Google, I think.
Okay, so you would open Google Slide on your browser and you click present, and then usually that takes over your whole screen. And then you can toggle back to Zoom. Are you on a Mac or a PC?
I'm on a PC.
Okay, Amanda, can you help me? How do you toggle back between windows with a PC?
I have no idea. Really not very technical.
Oh, that's okay. Amanda, do you know?
It's Alt-Tab. Alt-Tab.
Alt-Tab. Thank you. Thank you. So Lynn, once you have the screen that you're presenting your slides, you click Alt-Tab together on your keyboard, and that will take you back to Zoom. And so when you click the share screen, the slides will be one of your options. So that's just the sequencing of events. Make sure you have your slides ready, and then when you click share, you'll be able to choose that option, and then you can just start talking and you will be ready to go.
Okay, thanks.
Olivia, this is Jane. I have a question.
Yep.
If you wanted to, during the meeting, look in a directory and find a document, can you just navigate to that while you're sharing to get to that?
Yeah, would you like people to see you navigate or no?
Well, I guess if you open the document before the meeting, then it's going to show on your desktop. Something comes up, you didn't anticipate it, and you wanted to go find it right then.
Yeah, I think the easiest way is share your desktop and then navigate and find it. Then everyone will be able to see that you're looking for it. And then when it comes up, you don't have to like switch applications. It will just show what you have. So.
Right.
And that's probably the fastest way. Also, if you're like just having a conversation, you're like, oh, I just remember this thing I wanted to show you, and you can just retrieve it. But if you didn't have something already set up to go.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any other questions about screen sharing? No? Okay, I'm gonna do a time check. Okay, we're almost half point, great. So let's go and talk about breakout rooms. So breakout rooms, I don't have screenshots because it looks exactly like everything else. So when you're in a meeting and you're seeing all the people, what happens is in certain kinds of facilitated sessions, You might want to get smaller groups of people to work together and then come back together as a group at a later time to share or do something like that. So it's a pretty common, like if you're in a physical room, to do that sort of thing, everyone break into tables and then come back together and share what you've done. So with Zoom, we can also do that. So you would be in a session just like this one and you see everyone, and then the host has the ability to create basically mini Zoom meetings within this meeting. So for you, you'll basically just be moved to an experience that looks exactly like this with a subset of people. You don't have to do anything. The host is responsible for organizing the breakout rooms. And then they will usually set an expectation of like, oh, we're going to do this activity for 15 minutes. And in 15 minutes, I'm going to bring you back into the Zoom meeting. So it's really a hands-off experience as a participant. And the actual use of Zoom is the same. So the facilitator really does all the heavy lifting if we're going to use breakout rooms. We do have one session in our program that we're going to use breakout rooms for, and that is the Lister Trivia, which is extremely exciting, and I really hope you all show up for that. So any questions about that? There's really nothing for me to show, but I'm happy to answer any questions about what that might feel like. Good? Okay, excellent. All right, let's see. If I just check in my notes to see if there's anything else worth calling out here. No, I think we're good. So let's talk about when things go wrong. How do we troubleshoot audio and video? So this is it's a fairly common problem. So don't be alarmed if you join a session and no one can hear you or you can't hear people. It's very common. Everything is recoverable. The thing is, these settings look completely different from person to person. So I took a screenshot of my computer so you can see an example, but it is going to look different for you. So just keep that in mind. So both for audio issues and video issues, still on your bar of options at the bottom of the screen, next to where it says mute and has a little icon, and next to where it says start video and has a little icon, there's a little caret symbol that is actually an option that you can click individually, and that will reveal these extra settings here. So let's say video, for example. If you're not receiving, if no one can see you, but you know that you turned on video, like you have the little bar, so you know that the icon of the little camera is there and it says stop video below, so you know you have started it, but no one is seeing you. So there's some trouble between your camera and Zoom understanding each other. So usually that's because the selected camera that is being used in Zoom is incorrect. In my case here, I only have one camera, so I can't possibly be connected to a wrong camera. But this might be the reason why. Like if you're using an external camera connected to your computer, for example, this will tell you whether or not that camera is connected, and then you'll know where to troubleshoot. Maybe you didn't plug it in. Maybe the USB thing is borked. You need to do something about the physical camera, for example. So this will allow you to figure out what other troubleshooting steps. And like I said, it's going to be completely dependent of your specific circumstances. Similarly with audio. And audio often is where things get more messed up because of a variety of reasons. The way your hardware or your software is set up to do audio. You may have a really cool sound system hooked up to your computer. Who knows? You may have fancy headphones. There's a variety of potential combinations that may prevent you from hearing or being heard. So similarly, you click on that little caret symbol and it will tell you options about both your microphone and speakers. In my case, I have all these other options that I've used, and I have different kinds of headphones. So I have broken this many times before, but I know to look here and try a different thing. So I would say, don't be afraid to try. If one of them is not working, it is not obvious why it's not working. And sometimes it has a completely obscure name that makes no sense, like USB audio codec may mean nothing to you. That's okay, because if you click and it works, that's all you need to know. So if you have more than one option, just select the next one, try again, and see if that works. Usually that solves the problem. codecs and audio settings are a fairly complex problem that is far beyond what is interesting to us. So as long as we can get it working, it should be good enough. I know that doesn't feel very reassuring, but this is where you do that troubleshooting. One thing I will call out though, is that a lot of times the problems we have are much simpler than we think. So the first thing I would do if you can't hear what is being shared in a session from a speaker is check the volume on your computer. Sometimes that's all it takes. It's like, oh yeah, I lowered it because I was listening to someone talking. I forgot to pull it back up. And then you feel really silly, but you solve the problem. So that's great. So always check the volume setting on your computer first. Depending on your device, you may have not only the one on the software on the screen, but you may have a physical dial on your physical device. So check that too, because if you have both of those, it may be that one of them is lower and the other one is higher. Sometimes people are hearing the sound very softly. It's because they have the software one really high, but the physical one is really low and they didn't know that they had two settings. So just take a look at your computer, get familiarized with that, and make sure that you know to check for those options if that does happen. Last note about audio issues is sometimes Bluetooth devices that are connected to your computer, especially earbuds. And here, I'll show you one. So if you have in-ear earbuds, like these ones, they go inside and your ear and you connect via Bluetooth. Sometimes Zoom doesn't like them for whatever reason, who knows? And so sometimes they just work by default and then they stop working because they turn off and they can't reconnect when they turn back on. The easiest thing to do at that point is just turn off your sound, close your settings, and restart the session. There is no easy troubleshooting. Usually Bluetooth conflict sometimes creates more problems than it's worthwhile. For sessions that I'm presenting, I always use wired headphones just to avoid this sort of trouble. But if you're using Bluetooth devices, especially for hearing, I would suggest checking that setting first. So I would first connect the Bluetooth device to your computer, go to YouTube and turn something on just so you can test that you're receiving audio, then join the session. This way you're not trying to troubleshoot during the session and you don't miss anything. But just as a heads up, that is a thing that happens on occasion if you're using Bluetooth devices. Any thoughts, questions, or worries about this? Good. Okay. This is the easiest crowd. You're all like on top of everything. It's amazing. I'm very excited.
Don't get too overconfident there, Livia.
Well, I'm excited because you're going to have a great summit experience, and that's really all I want out of this. All right, so let's talk about some good practices. Oh, Lynn Miller, did you have your hand raised?
It's a very simple question, but
yep.
I've got the photographs of people speaking down one side of the screen. Mm-hmm. And because I look at that side of the screen, I look really odd because I'm facing away from everybody. Everybody else seems to be looking forward. Can you move the pictures into the middle of the screen so it doesn't look so weird?
So I'm not going to try to guess exactly what you're looking at, but where you're seeing all the faces,
I've got a monitor and I've just got a stack of people down one side of the screen. So
okay, so where all the squares with the people's images are, if you grab with your mouse the top of that panel and drag that, you should be able to move it. So yes, you can always rearrange the screen in a way that's more comfortable for you.
Because I seem to be looking out.
Yeah, so I like talking here and everyone is over here. Yeah, that's a really great point. Like create an environment that feels really comfortable for you, so that you're not feel like you're like having to look at different places. So everyone, like that's a really good thing to just explore. Like just if you want to try it right now, like move your screen around. It even has more options. That same panel that you can drag and put in a different location, there are some little icons at the top where you can reduce to just looking one person at a time, or a bar of people at a time, or you have the little 3x3 that gives you the gallery view. So you can experiment with that and see what feels more comfortable for you. Sometimes that, the larger version like covers the screen, and if it's something you really want to look at the screen, you can minimize that and make like not just listen to people and not look at anyone. or just keep one or two available. That same panel, also you can drag the bottom left and right corners to make it bigger or smaller. So there's a lot of flexibility. I would say like play around with it and see what works. And during a session, play around with it as well, because depending on the dynamics or how many people are in conversation, you may want to see more or less people. Thank you for that question, Lynn. That's a great point. All right, we're good? Okay, I am going to head to the final point here, which is some good practices and some things that might make your experience even better now that you've mastered Zoom to make all the things happen. So just as a way to help us have like easier conversations and being able to call on people more easily, it's best to use your first name and last name on Zoom. So as you can see, everyone's names shown along with their image. You can change that by clicking on the participants panel, hovering over your name, and you're gonna see a little button that says more, and then there's a rename option. So that allows you to update that if you don't have your name there yet. Sometimes, you know, people use like funny names when they're in Zoom parties or whatever, and they want to look more professional when they're at a conference and want to use their own names. So this is just the place you want to know to go and make that update. The second one I mentioned before is keep yourself muted, only unmute if it's your turn to speak. Like it really helps with background noise and when there's a speaker going through content, and especially if it's a conversation among panelists, for example, it really helps keep the experience very smooth for everyone else. But then the #1 problem with Zoom, even before the AV troubleshooting, is people start talking before they unmute themselves. And so they're talking at the screen and we're seeing them gesticulating and doing things, but we can't hear them. So this is just getting comfortable with using Zoom and doing it a few times. It happens to everyone, it's okay. But if you start talking and you're muted, you're gonna hear someone say, you're muted, unmute yourself. So that's just something to keep in mind until you get comfortable doing that as a normal part of a conversation. Let's see, what else? Use chat to catch up on something you missed. So sometimes, and I've mentioned this in some of the Summit communications, we are gonna have such a huge crowd from people all over the world. We're using English as our primary language just to make things simple, but a lot of people's languages is, you know, English is their second, third, or fourth language. There are folks with accents from all over the place. So it's not unusual to miss something or not understand a particular spelling or something specific. You can always go into the chat and say like, what was that? Or even ask like, what was that reference? What was the date of that diary entry? And I'm sure someone will jump in and be able to answer that. So really use that. It's like being able to just have a conversation while still participating and listening in on the session. Second to that is don't yell on chat. And what I mean by that is caps lock makes the chat feels very intense. So everyone can see your words just fine. There is no volume in the chat. So we're trying to really avoid using a lot of screaming when we are trying to read through a lot of running text. Last one we mentioned during the screen share portion is ask the moderator or facilitator of the session before you screen share. For the most part, the sessions will probably already be set up so that you can only share if you are one of the people facilitating or presenting. But if that's not the case, if it's an open session where we're all collaborating or doing something together, it's just good form to ask before you start doing that. Last but not least, wear clothes. It is easy to forget. And also warn your housemates that you'll be on video. People come out of the shower or are going to their bathrooms. Like everyone is at home. We understand you might be at work, but if not, it's not a bad reminder. Sometimes we forget, we get comfortable, we're just watching a session and you're like, it's hot in here, and I started to take my shirt off. So just keep that reminder, but it's mostly to remind other people in your life, because you're gonna be really focused on the sessions, you're gonna be participating, and you're gonna have some interruptions potentially, but if not, I'm sure they would like to know that there is a live camera in their environment. So just a nice thing to remind everyone with you. I covered all of these interactions with Zoom using the desktop version because that's what we're recommending your setup to be during the event. But if you are using a tablet or a phone, the only advice I would give is use a stand to keep it propped up. It gets tiring very quickly if you spend 45 minutes holding your phone trying to watch a Zoom session. And also you're gonna start shaking, and then your video is looking to look super annoying to everyone else. And it's really hard to follow. So it's just for your comfort. Make sure you find some way to keep your smaller devices propped up and in a stable position. Any questions or thoughts about these final things? No? Cool, I'm seeing thumbs up.
Yes.
All right.
How do I do that?
Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you. These pages or slides that you've shown,
Yes.
how did you on your laptop or, move them on to the next slide?
So remember when I said you went to Google Slide and you click present?
Yeah.
And then you were on that screen. And then you went back to Zoom and you shared your screen, right? So
yes.
After you complete that, you return to the slides, you alt tab and go back to the slides. And then you just click on the screen. Every time you click on the screen, it continues to the next slide.
Okay.
And that will allow you to progress through.
Thank you.
Would you like to try it? If you have some slides ready, we're here. We can test it out with you.
That's a great idea. I haven't got any slides ready though, so.
Okay. Well, if you want to try later, we can absolutely do that.
That's great. Thank you.
No problem. But yeah, it should be just a matter of switching between the slides themselves and the Zoom where you shared, and you should be able to click through. All right. So those were our tips for working with Zoom, and we hope you feel equipped to get things done. I am very excited. It seems like everyone here is super on top of things. So now what's left is get ready for the summit. We launched the full program this morning, so we have it all available on the website. You have the option to only register for sessions that you're available or interested in. You don't have to come to everything, but take a look at the schedule. If you have any questions, just ping us on Twitter. We can answer any of that. The one thing I want to make sure everyone keeps in mind is as you register for sessions, you're going to do that using Eventbrite is what we're using. Make sure your email address is the same email address you use to create your Zoom account. Otherwise, we won't be able to tell if you are the same person who registered and the same person that's coming to the session. This is the one way we have of telling. So as you register, make sure you use the same email address for both things. Does that make sense? All right. Well, this is all I had, everybody. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm very excited to see you all next week.
Olivia, I'd just like to say
Thank you very much.
and everyone else who retired before the dawning of the age of Zoom, I had no idea, none. So
Good. How are you feeling right now?
great, it doesn't seem that bad. I was pretty intimidated by it though before.
Yeah. We have 28 sessions set up, so we're gonna have plenty of practice. By the time we're done, you're gonna be teaching everyone else.
We shall see.
All right, everybody. I'll see you all next week. Bye.